going to take you to another part of the globe. I'm going to take you to Latin America, where I've been doing my research over the last 3.5 years, working on smart cities, how smart cities are being implemented in the Latin American context. I'm going to tell you from the beginning, the conversations that we are having here, they are not anywhere near to that. Well, in Colombia, certainly we don't talk this way about the smart cities. So there is a huge gap in the literature about smart cities. Even the term smart cities is not known, not even in Spanish, which is ciudad inteligente. People don't have any relation, no content about it. But of course, people are very brave when they are asked. So they give you answers. Of course, people, we are using technology every day, so there is the association to technology all the time. But further than that, there is no more. So I'm going to take you to Medellín. I'm going to present very quickly why Medellín is the case study, what makes it very important in the Latin American context. Then I'm going to talk about some ideas on innovations, grassroots innovations, which is the concept I'm using to dive in the Medellín context. And then I'm going to talk about the methodology that I use, which is a participatory video, very related to what we heard this morning, and I hope that I can contribute some reflections on that part, which I call, well, I use it to visualize those alternative narratives that are emerging in terms of, innovation. And then I will share some reflections and conclusions. So, okay, Medellín is located in the northwest part of the country. If you see here, well, you cannot, where you see the dot, is right on the top of the Andes mountain. So geographically already Medellín poses a huge challenge. I mean, the city is in a valley. And if you imagine Rio favelas, they are similar. Like all the informal settlements are located surrounding the city, and the formal city is just at the bottom of the valley, and there is a river crossing the city. So it's the second largest city in the country. There are 2.5 million people, so we can consider that a small scale compared to Bogota. Bogota, which is the capital, is 9 million. So there is a huge difference in terms of population, but it's the second largest, and also is the most important one in terms of. I think it is called a smart city just because there is a huge agenda in terms of transport. And transport has become the central agenda in urban governance. And that's what has made Medellín a very a popular city today in the world. So I'm going to tell you just a brief story. Medellín, of course, as many other cities in the Latin American context and in the global south in general, I think, has developed two discourses that you can sense once you visit the city. So one is an innovative city. Medellín very recently, in 2013, won a prize that called it the most innovative city over New York, Tel Aviv, and other cities, very important cities in the world. So that, of course, was a huge, help for the marketing of the city at the international level. So that discourse has remained in the local government, and they are budgeting a lot on that agenda to do many other activities and to develop a more kind of global agenda and put Medellín at the international stage. And of course, there is another one that is emerging from the hills, from the informal settlements, and from the communities that are organized, from people who are contesting urbanism and the way that the urban development is being developed well in Medellín. So they are calling for a more just city. They call it ciudad digna. I was trying to translate. Just city doesn't encapsulate what means digno. It's dignify, but I don't know if a dignified city would encapsulate that neither. So these two contrasting discourses are, of course, bursting in the city. Everyone has their own side. And I think through my research, I'm just trying to see how we bridge. What are the initiatives? What are the tools that we may need to bring in order to imagine a city that is more mediated by technology, but bring more people, I mean, the people who are developing those two discourses together. So briefly, I'm just going to mention facts about Medellín. Medellín, as many of you may have heard, have become a beacon for urban transformation. And actually, if you Google Medellín right now, if you Google social urbanism, it's gonna come up. Medellín would be the best example of that, and actually was the city that coined the term. As I mentioned, it has won international prizes in 2013, the most important one probably for the creation of this innovative city, and in 2015 won the, wow. In 2016, sorry, they won like a prize that is kind of the Nobel for cities. It was given in Singapore, and it was because all this urban transformation led by the government. And of course, I should mention of Medellín. The reason these prizes were given is because in 1980s, Medellín was the capital of cartels, drugs, Pablo Escobar, and it was the most dangerous city to live in the world in 1984. So imagine what happened in 1984 to move the city in 2013 to become the most innovative. So of course, the city has lent itself to be an urban lab to understand how our urban governance was reimagined and was implemented, and how this new type of social urbanism is actually improving or not the quality of life of the citizens. And it has developed the digital discourse on Medellín Ciudad Inteligente as an agenda, but you know, it's a bit of lacking content. So on the other side, of course, Medellín is the most unequal city in Latin America. So you can ask how is the most innovative and at the same time become the most unequal city in the country and in Latin America with one of the highest, Gini coefficient, I think is 0.6, which is very high for the Latin American context. And Medellín has been beaten by urban violence. Is like endemic in the city, of course, because of the narco traffic, the cartels, paramilitary groups, and probably you may have heard, Colombia has been undergoing a peace talk, and in 2016 we have the referendum to approve those agreements that were being led by the state with the guerrilla groups. And so that national conflict has in Medellín generated a lot of displacement, intra-urban displacement, people who are moving, shifting places within the same city, but also people who come from other cities in the country that move there. So it has, of course, put a huge burden in terms of urban development to the city. And yes, just as I speak today, we are facing in Colombia one of the worst crises in terms of murders. Human rights defenders are being killed every day, almost 5, 6 a day, and it's becoming really, really, like the crime percentage is becoming really high. So just to say that it's a very contrasting, like this is something that makes you question why do we market and we just like blind a reality to just sell this to the world like we are the urban transformation model. So in that sense, I was just, asking how to bridge, again, these contrasting narrative vision, or narratives and visions for the present and future of the city. That's the question. Sorry, I was presenting another one. So I think when we talk about these two narratives and and how to make people participate, because actually people are participating a lot. How to make that participation legitimate in front of the local government, how to make the case for all the things that are happening in the ground, that are, all the innovations that are emerging from the ground. I'm using this idea of grassroots urban innovations, which is defined as the network of activists and social organizations generating novel bottom-up solutions for sustainable development, solutions that respond to the local situation and the interests and values of the communities involved. What I was very interested in looking at is how people are participating in urban planning, even when it's not, their voices are not being accounted for, but how they are organizing, how they are building the discourses, how they are debating, how they are coming together to really unveil a huge amount of challenges that they have at the local level that can be part of that global city level agenda. So I went, of course, it was very difficult to understand what was going on at the city level, so I chose a very specific part at the top. Medellín is divided into 16 comunas, and I chose the Comuna 8, which is very famous in Medellín because Comuna 8 has been the main settlement for people who have been displaced at the national level. So there is a very diverse community living there. And so I wanted to see what was going on because also the local government is very scared of community activists in Comuna 8. So I just wanted to go and see what they were doing different and how they were building a new vision of what they call the territory and how they socially build that territory to make it more meaningful for their lives. So more or less, Comuna 8 looks like this when you are in the lower part of the valley. So, like kind of in a very abstract way, I was just trying to locate those, different innovations, people who are really working in very different themes, like provision of basic services, mapping for risk reduction in the comunas, because of course in these mountains there have been a lot of disasters. So people who are working on environmental issues, housing rights, cultural organizations, LGBT rights, women empowerment, and like so on. So I was just trying to see how to actually start mapping and start unveiling all those ideas. So I think as we talk now that there is so much still to be done in terms of defining smart city, how that is embedded in communities. I took on participatory video to map and to visualize those innovations. I think that's the potential. Perhaps it's not going to translate into digital, but it's going to mediate. It's going to at least advocate in front of other citizens who don't have any idea that these things are going on. So kind of a rising awareness that this is happening. So I undertook this participatory video I partnered with a grassroots community media organization. I offered training in PV for 10 volunteers who became co-researchers of my co-researchers, and 20 people took part of it between 10 years old to 62. So it was like an intergenerational workshop that took over 4 months, and the result of this was we produced 3 videos. And it was very interesting because people were extremely skeptical about innovation from the beginning. And they told me, Gynna, we don't want to talk about innovation because that's supporting the local agenda. This innovation is displacing us, as we have heard in like cases in India. And with appropriating the word would validate the agenda in Medellín. So we don't want to do that. So in a way, for me, it was a challenge to kind of reclaim the innovation concept and give a new meaning throughout the process. And what happened was that actually the 3 videos talk about places that they identify as innovative, places that mediate the war in the 90s between community and the local state, places that actually allow more people to live because young people were being killed every day. So like a library was very, very, very controversial. They just offered this new space to talk about peace in the territory. And a person was identified as very innovative and a practice. So just to summarize, sorry that I am actually overtaking time, is that definitely the Spanish narrative is under construction, and one of my aims with this work is to actually translate it into Spanish and put some critical reflections on smart cities in there. Innovation in this place also means displacement. There is a great disconnection between the discourse of these people, these grassroots innovations, and the ones that are making policy. And yes, a smart city in opposite direction to the right city. Communities have their own methods. As I was saying this morning, we should budget on those methods and methodologies that they are developing. And yeah, specifically in Colombia, there is a current need to foster peace building and through process of memory. So important to look into those things. So, sorry, I went too much.